After doing the double for a record 10th time versus Tottenham Hotspur, Chelsea go again this weekend in another London derby at Stamford Bridge against the team we just overtook in the table, West Ham United. Lads, lasses and the rest of the masses, welcome to the lead-in. Let's set the scene here. It's Chelsea versus West Ham, 8th in the Premier League versus 9th. After getting all 3 points in a really good performance versus Spurs, we sit just 3 points off of top 6, which considering our season so far would be a monumental feat. So we need to get past the Hammers first in order to do that, a team that has been lingering in mid-table like us for the last few match weeks and aren't in the greatest form as of late. They only have 1 win in their last 5, recently got knocked out of the Europa League by the Bundesliga champions Bayer Leverkusen, and have conceded 7 goals in their last 2 games. Despite this, they did put on an impressive performance against Liverpool last time out, and could be set up to do the double over us as they beat us at the London Stadium very early on in the season. They'll be looking to do just that, so let's take a quick look at the potential West Ham team and see what they could be bringing to the table. Firstly, let's talk absentees. The Hammers have very few injury concerns, lucky for some, and so they will likely field a strong starting 11. The only players that might be unavailable for selection in this one are Nayef Aguerd, who's been nursing an ankle injury, George Earthy, who may or may not be back from concussion protocol after his nasty clash of heads with Edson Alvarez versus Fulham, and finally Dinos Mavropanos, who also has a small unspecified knock. I'll be putting David Moyes' side into his standard 4-2-3-1 formation for this fixture, with the team likely not having many changes. First up in goal though is going to be their first choice, Alphonse Areola. The Frenchman will be hoping not to concede an own goal this time out. The defence is going to be the exact same back 4 that started versus Liverpool, with 2 former Blues in the side. Firstly, in at right back will be the Czech native Vladimir Koufal. The centre-back partnership will be one we've gotten used to seeing from the Hammers, with ex-Blue Kurt Zouma and Italian Angelo Ogbonna in the right and left centre-back spots respectively. Finally, over on the left will be another ex-Blue, Brazilian-born Italian Emerson Palmieri. Moving into the midfield, we'll start with the deeper roles. I think there could be a change here as West Ham try to inflict damage upon us with set pieces, knowing that's one of our weaknesses, so James Ward-Prowse is returning to the lineup instead of Mexican Edson Alvarez. Next to him will be the ever-infamous controversial figure of Thomas Souček. Let's hope this time he sticks to the centre-mid role instead of playing goalkeeper against us. Moving into the attacking midfield roles, and I think these pick themselves, Jared Bowen obviously starts on the right side, Brazilian Lucas Paquetá will take up the central role behind the striker, and finally over on the left will be Ghanaian international Mohamed Kudus. That leaves the one man up top, and it's obviously going to be Michail Antonio, who was a massive threat in the reverse fixture, and one to watch out for sure. As I said, just a brief overview of what I expect their team to look like. Other than the midfield tweak, I doubt there will be any changes to the side in truth. Now let's quickly take a look at how Chelsea could line up. We barely have 11 senior players to pick from, with the majority of our first teamers still out injured. There are a couple returns that I mentioned before that could finally be coming, but not with any major involvement, I don't think. I think that we'll continue to use this 4-2-3-1 as ever, but this will most likely modify in-game to the 3-2-5 that we've seen in the previous 2 games. As ever, I'll be showing what I expect from Poch, then suggest changes that I personally would like to see. Starting with the goalkeeper, I'm going to be putting in Georgia Petrovic as ever. He finally got a clean sheet last time out, which is great for his confidence, so let's hope we continue to collect those. The back 4 could be changed depending on how severe Axel Disasi's injury is, but starting with the right back, I'm going to be sticking with Alfie Gilchrist, who was immense on that side last time out. The centre-back partnership is not changing at all, with goalscorer Trevor Chalobah starting on the right alongside the much improved Benoit Badiashile. Finally, over on the left will of course be Marc Cucurella, who's been a revelation in this new inverted role and will be looking to dominate the midfield once again. Moving into that midfield, we'll start with the holding roles. I doubt this changes with how good Moises Caicedo has been in recent months, and Conor Gallagher will partner him in the engine room whilst pushing on a little too. Ahead of them in the attacking midfield roles, I don't think this is changing either. Noni Madueke has been really good on the right in the last couple of games, so he retains his place, as does Cole Palmer, who is still looking to add to his goal tally in the Golden Boot race. Misha Mudryk will line up on the left, and considering he created the most amount of chances for our side in that first half versus Spurs, I think he has justified another start. As does the final man in this lineup, our main man up top, Nicholas Jackson, who, like I predicted, got on the score sheet last time and made it 4 goals in 2 games versus Tottenham. This is what I am expecting, but what would I personally change? Let's start with the backline. As I mentioned, one of the centre-backs could drop out if Disasi is fit. I'd expect Gilchrist to be the man sacrificed in that regard, with Chalobah going out to the right side. We also don't fully know if Gilchrist was just getting cramp or if he was truly injured at the end of the game. If he is injured, I could foresee the full debut of Josh Acheampong, who I was delighted to see come off of the bench and put in a solid cameo. Moving into midfield, I don't think that anything will change here, but Cesare Casadei as ever is an inclusion that could be made into the centre if Poch reckons we need more height in the side versus West Ham, who are a very tall, aerially strong team. Apart from that, I think this is the strongest team we can field with all our injuries. Levi Colwill and Christopher Nkunku could be on the bench finally, and possibly get short cameos as they return to full fitness, and maybe some more involvement for all the youth. Jimmy Toriainen is a possibility for a short stint at the Bridge. So those are my lineups, and I'd like to hear from you guys too, so for today's question of the day, answer me this. Pretty simple one today, who do you predict will be our player of the match in this game, and why? Let me know in the comments down below with QOTD at the start as always, and I'll heart my favourite answers. Now let's analyse the previous performances from these clubs and discuss what we can do to beat West Ham comfortably in this fixture. So once again, here is this 3-2-5 system that we've been seeing from the last few games. I think this system will suit us for this fixture in particular against West Ham, because in the previous fixture that they just played against Liverpool, an out of form Liverpool by their standards I should say, they were absolutely dominated overall in that game. They were just really wasteful with their chances, Liverpool, and even despite that they were leading up until the late goal in the 77th minute. I think that if they were a bit less wasteful, I think West Ham would have probably conceded 4, maybe 5 goals in this game. And the difference between the two clubs is kind of what I want to discuss here in the way that they employ the system, because the system that Liverpool play is very similar to us with we have Cucurella in this centre inverting into the midfield. They have Trent Alexander-Arnold doing the same thing on the opposite side, but Trent does sometimes end up on the left side too and play the cross-field balls, but apart from that, the systems are very similar in the way that they function. But the difference is that Liverpool like to play through the centre. They don't really like going straight for wing play and going right around the outside. They like getting it to their wingers, but the wingers usually cut inside and they create danger that way. Or, as I said, they get it to Trent in the centre and then play it through the centre of the pitch. This doesn't really work against West Ham because of the way that they defend. They are a narrow defensive team that like to sit in their box like this and defend, and the reason they do this is a very clever way of actually defending, and obviously they will have the other midfielders and the strikers here, but I haven't put them in just for clarity's sake to not have so much screen clutter. But the way that West Ham defend and the way that they do this is because they want to force you to go around the outside. They want to force you to go into these areas and put balls into the box, because aerially they are very competent and they feel that they can win the ball in those areas and defend that way very comfortably. We've seen this in the past, that Chelsea have done this as well. We've sometimes defended in a 4-4-2 and we do the same thing. Even in this system, sometimes the fullback Cucurella will go back into left back and we will sit in a 4-4-2 of some description, or a 4-5-1 at times, with Jackson being the lone player left up there. It's a very good way of ensuring that the opposition are going to go around the outside and not play straight through the middle. Being compact and being hard to break down is part of the reason why West Ham have been so successful this season, and part of the reason why this system has suited us as well. And obviously we've seen that our defensive capabilities have actually been getting better as well in those scenarios, and we have been keeping clean sheets now. We kept a clean sheet against Spurs, and Cucurella in particular had a really good game out on this left flank against Brennan Johnson. He shut him down completely, and if West Ham are going to play that same way and try and get their balls out to Bowen or out to Kudus on the other side, I think that we can deal with that pretty well. But it's a similar system that we've been using, and so we can kind of use the experience of what have kind of broken us down and use that to break West Ham down, because we know how it functions now. I spoke in the previous fixture about the width of this attacking line and why Gallagher and Palmer being in the central areas actually pushes Madueke and Mudryk out wide to the touchline, and why this benefits us. And that's mainly because it helps us stretch out the opposition, with the fullbacks going out to meet them and then the centre backs obviously going here, and the spaces between the players now being wider, and that creating more opportunities for us to play through those gaps, or just isolate the defenders out 1v1 on the wings. Now, part of the reason why I said that this suits us more than Liverpool is because we are a team that likes to go around the outside. They don't really do that. We like going around the outside, especially with Madueke. Despite being a left-footed player, which would suggest that he'd like to come inside onto his left foot, he doesn't really do this. He likes kind of using that as a decoy and then going around the outside to the byline and trying to get cutbacks into the box. And obviously cutbacks are going to be really important in this game. We can't really beat West Ham aerially. We don't have the centre forward that's going to do that, or the height in the midfield that's going to do that. So I feel like this would be an option for us to go around the outside. Even Mudryk on the other side, he likes running into this channel sometimes when the ball gets played from these areas, from Badiashile, who likes to play balls over the top, or Cucurella, who's been playing balls into the top, over the top sometimes as well in that previous fixture. Even Jackson sometimes likes doing this as well, because he loves running into this left channel, and he will come over here and then get into the box and try and put balls across, or as we saw in that Spurs game, actually get shots off on goal, and he nearly scored a wonderful goal from this position if it weren't for Mickey van der Ven covering the open goal. I think West Ham will defend very narrow like this and be stubborn as much as they can, but the danger that is going to arise from Madueke constantly bombing down this right-hand flank and Mudryk constantly bombing around the left-hand flank instead, I think is going to force them to eventually adapt that game plan and move these two out here to try and contend with them. Obviously this being Vladimir Coufal and Emerson Palmieri. And what this will do, as I mentioned before, is that it will create these 1v1s isolated against the fullbacks, and that's kind of what both of our players want. Madueke obviously is a very confident runner, he will always try and take on his man. Mudryk not so much, but there is something that he does like to do, and I want to focus on Mudryk specifically for this fixture, because we saw he had a very, very good first half against Spurs, and I want to kind of highlight one of his signature things that he does, and that is something that he can't really do if this isolation and this 1v1 doesn't really happen, and that's what I like to call a drop and pop. He does this very often. When the ball is out here with Badiashile or sometimes with Cucurella, he'll drop into this area near the halfway line and try and invite the fullback to come with him. And as he comes with him and as he receives the ball from Badiashile, he'll pop it to the left really quickly and create this space. And now, because of the committal that the fullback has done, he's isolated out here, he can't get back in time, and what Mudryk likes to do sometimes is one of three things. He either likes to turn and run into this space and get into these high attacking areas like we've seen before. He can pass it inside to Jackson, he's done that a lot of the time, but mostly one of the things which he does is these really, really quick over the top crossfield diagonal balls to Madueke out on the flank. And obviously if the defense has shifted over this way to Mark on this side, because that's what happens when the ball goes out onto this left hand side, Madueke is going to be completely free here. And then when he gets the ball from the scenario and he has to run at the opposition fullback, the fullback is already out of position here, and it makes it really, really hard for him to defend against. This is a really dangerous way of us attacking and can open up the stubborn defence of West Ham if they decide to do this. Obviously, it's a big if they do actually decide to defend that way, but obviously I think that we can actually force them to do that with the danger that the two wide men actually present. This can only happen if those 1v1s occur though, so maybe we'll have a situation where we'll have to really dig in deep and try and actually break them down, but this is one of the ways that we can do that if they do decide to be a little bit less pragmatic. I want to quickly mention something that kept happening in the previous fixture against the two clubs, and something that we have to be wary of, and something that I don't think will cause us much issues in this game, but could definitely be something to watch out for, and that's the way that West Ham counter-attack, and obviously because they are quite a pragmatic side, but one of the things is that they are very, very good going forward. I think they don't get a lot of credit for how good they are going forward, especially on the counter-attack, because they are very clinical in that regard. And we saw it in the previous fixture that Antonio, who unfortunately I don't actually have here, but let's just bring one of these guys here. Say this is Antonio. He was very, very good in the previous fixture at taking our central centre-back, in that case it was Silva, and when he stepped up, completely burning him and going the other way. We got punished by this many, many times with Antonio spinning in behind, and if we get that situation again against Chalobah, I don't know how well he's going to be able to handle Antonio. We'll have to see whether that becomes an issue, but I think we've been kind of defending these counterattacks and these transitions a bit better with this new system. Obviously, as I said before, we got a clean sheet in the last fixture against Spurs, and they were at times trying to break on us, but it keeps happening that they couldn't really play out. And again, that's something that I highlighted in my previous breakdown of this system, is that because of how high we push up as a team, it pins the opposition back into the box and it makes it really difficult for them to play out. If we can do this, then I think we can completely nullify West Ham's main strength, which is their really, really good clinical counter-attacking play. And if we can pen them into their box and not allow them to play out, obviously it just recycles the ball back to us, and then we can continue to go forward from that transition. As long as we can do that and we can prevent West Ham from creating much and create a lot ourselves like Liverpool did in the previous fixture against them, I do back us to score and win in this game. Obviously we'll just have to see come match day whether this system actually deploys this way and whether West Ham decide to be really, really pragmatic or come out and attack us like I mentioned before. For a score prediction, I'm going to be predicting a Chelsea win. I think that Chelsea using this system is more than capable of winning this game, and I'm going to predict another comfortable 2-0 victory. I think our goal scorers are going to be Madueke, who I'm also backing to be player of the match, and Gallagher, who will score from long range. We'll have to wait until the game to see if any of my predictions are correct, and as always, I'll be live streaming after the game to give my first reactions. But if you can't wait until then, YouTube reckons you'll enjoy one of these 2 videos on screen in the meantime. Thank you guys so much for watching as ever, and remember, in the rain or in the dry, keep that blue flag flying high. Come on, you Blues!